The impact of this progress is not only medical, but financial as well. In 1992, the revenues from publicly traded U.S. biotech companies totaled about $8 billion. Today, the figure is nearly 8 times that amount. Northeast Ohio's recent efforts to capitalize on our medical strengths have begun to bear fruit. Since 2003, Greater Cleveland has attracted more than $750 million in private investment for 75 new health-related startups. These dollars are in addition to the funding attracted and generated by long-standing leaders like Invacare, Steris, Philips Medical. Roughly 20,000 people work in biosciences in Greater Cleveland, and the federal government says that this field is poised to increase by 13% a year as we go forward. Over the same period, our own medical school garnered well over $1 billion in research funding. Every individual project grant generates 7 jobs at an average salary of $52,000 a year. In Ohio, research shows that every dollar of NIH funding yields $2.29 in economic results. For example, we have launched 20 companies and collected $52 million in licensing revenue. One of these companies, Cardio Insight, is pioneering a way to examine the heart's electrical activity without any invasive procedures. Another, Great Lakes Pharmaceuticals, develops materials that prevent infections for patients with catheters. And a third, Synapse Biomedical, created a pacemaker for the diaphragm to help individuals who cannot breathe without a ventilator. This device, you may recall, was implanted in the late actor Christopher Reeve here in 2003. This device was developed over 20 years of laboratory research and clinical trials, and it can make it possible for a patient to live in his own home rather than a nursing home or a hospital. Think of the gift that this technology represents for patients and their families. Now, as impressive as these achievements may be, they're not nearly enough. The scientists and physicians at Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine certainly celebrate their progress, but only for a moment. They will not and cannot stop until more of the battles are won. Think of the destruction wrought by stroke or Parkinson's, spinal cord injury, and other forms of paralysis. Professor Jerry Silver has spent his entire professional life searching for ways to reverse this damage. As early as 1987, long time, Jerry, he could restore limb movements in rats by introducing neural cells into the damaged area. This past fall, he and his colleagues found a way to combine light pulses and injected neurons to restore regular breathing in laboratory rats whose diaphragms were paralyzed. Now, Professor Silver's work has won all manner of awards, including honors from the Christopher Reeve Foundation, and he could easily rest on his decades of publications and breakthroughs. Instead, Professor Silver still speaks of his work with childlike enthusiasm. He is fascinated by the behavior of nerve cells and fibers and compelled to break the signaling code that makes some damaged fibers retreat, some hold fast, and his ultimate goal, of course, is to figure out how to make them advance, rebuild, and restore lost function. Over at the Cleveland Functional Electrical Stimulation, or FES Center, Case Western Reserve Professor Hunter Peckham and his team have already achieved some of this outcome by using implants and electrical stimulation. Through their innovative technology, paralyzed patients are able once again to grip a pen or a mug, to stand, even to walk. Consider the story of Jennifer French, an avid skier who suffered a devastating spinal cord injury on the slopes in New Hampshire in 1998. Thanks to a system from the FES, in 2001, she walked down the aisle at her own wedding. And now she heads the Neurotech Network, an education and advocacy group that works to increase patient access to such devices. Professor Peckham battles every day for folks like Jen, and so does his entire team. Dr. Sanford Markowitz, meanwhile, is trying to stop damage before it happens. Colon cancer claims more than 50,000 lives a year and is the second leading cause of cancer deaths in the United States. Colonoscopies are quite accurate in diagnosing the disease, but too often people put off this test because of its discomfort. Indeed, Only about 1/3 of these cancers are caught in their early stages at the time when the disease is 90% curable. Dr. Markowitz is such a leader in the field that he's one of only 8 medical advisors for the National Colorectal Cancer Alliance, the group CBS News anchor Katie Couric assembled after the death of her husband, Jay Monahan, from colon cancer. Several years ago, Couric discussed some of Sandy's research on the Today Show, and his lab was flooded by over 5,000 phone calls. In 1995, Dr. Markowitz and colleagues discovered a distinct biological marker in the cells of those who had the disease. Over time, they developed a test that is 77% accurate in identifying this cancer. It's now been endorsed by the American Cancer Society, and last month it was awarded a U.S. patent. Over-the-counter tests are now on the horizon, and it's being marketed by a company whose motto for screening is, "The best test is the one that gets used." We are deeply proud of Sandy and hold great hopes for the impact of this test. But even this successful example underscores the challenges we face and some of the key steps we have to take going forward. Remember, Dr. Markowitz's major breakthrough came 14 years ago. 14 years, yet the test is still not widely available. Why is that? Part of the reason is the choices that we make as a nation. America spent $2.25 trillion on health care in 2007, but only 5.5% of that went to biomedical research. In other words, 5.5 cents of every dollar goes for the cure and not for the care. Let me put it more directly. Cancer and diabetes alone cost more in 1 year, $451 billion, than the total the United States has invested in the National Institutes of Health since its inception following World War II, $394 billion. At the same time, it's grown ever more difficult to bring treatments to patients. Experts call the space between research breakthroughs and patient treatments the valley of death. That is, federal dollars typically go to original research, but private investors seek to put money into treatments that have gone through enough testing to qualify as the proverbial sure thing. In between is a funding wasteland, where 90% of the projects die for lack of support. In recent years, private investors and companies have grown even more cautious. In 1996, the FDA approved 53 drugs for market. A decade later, 18. What can we do to change these trends, to bring more cures and treatment from lab to life? Some of the necessary changes have already begun. The National Institutes of Health has launched a new effort to ensure that researchers focus not only on innovation, but on actual impact as well. As just one example, our medical school is the lead institution in a program testing new vaccines, together with our partner at Johns Hopkins University. The NIH's Clinical and Translational Science Award, CTSA program, encourages collaboration among the disciplines, institutions, and areas of expertise. Lab-based researchers work hand in hand with doctors seeing patients. Computer scientists partner with geneticists, engineers with neuroscientists, and so on. Case Western Reserve was the lead agency in securing one of these new grants for Cleveland, a $64 million award that's the single largest NIH grant ever received in Northeast Ohio. A partnership among the School of Medicine, the Schools of Nursing, Dentistry, and Engineering, the Cleveland Clinic, Metro Health Medical Center, the Lewis Stokes VA Medical Center, and university hospitals. The project focuses on developing treatments and getting them to Northeast Ohio residents. Also, this program is seeking the input of the community into identifying the important healthcare issues for them. Childhood obesity, teen violence, dental health, they all emerge as community priorities.